Hey guys, it's Tabby. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about some perfumes that I recently smelled in Sephora. These are all new ones and I'm going to let you know what I think of them and whether I'm thinking of purchasing any of them. So first of all, I want to say hey and welcome to all of my new subscribers. I've had quite an influx of new subscribers lately and I just want to thank you all because I've kind of reached a personal goal of mine and it's not going to be like anyone else's. I know it's not huge, but to me it's important because I have surpassed the population of the island where I live. And to me that's kind of a big deal. Many of you know that I live on a very small, very rural island connected to the mainland by a 2-hour ferry ride, and the population of the island is 2,500. It's probably give or take. I know it goes up in the summer because there are summer residents and it's probably a little different depending on when the last census was, but it's around 2,500. If someone asks me, what is the population of your island? I would say 2,500. And I have surpassed 2,500 subscribers. I know it's not huge, but to me, it is so cool to have more subscribers than the island that I live on. Anyways, I just want to thank you all, each and every one of you. And even if you're just watching and you don't subscribe, I appreciate the views. I appreciate you hanging out with me and spending your time with me. I know time is very precious these days. Everyone's busy. So for you to take your time and to watch my channel, it means a lot to me and I'm glad that you enjoy it. So last weekend, I went away to the mainland, took the 2-hour ferry ride, drove to the nearest city, and we went to a wedding there. It was so nice. And then the next morning, my husband took off further up the province to a golf tournament with all of his friends. Well, a golf weekend with all of his friends. And I went to my sister's for the weekend and we practiced our music. We're performing at a local restaurant here on the island this summer at the end of August. We're so excited. But while I was waiting for my sister to get off work, I wandered into the Sephora in her city, which is the capital city of our province. Normally I go into the Sephora that is closer to me, but I got to go into a different Sephora and they had so much stuff in there. Maybe it's also in the closer Sephora, I'm not sure, but it just seemed like they had so much new stuff in there to smell and it was very exciting. I had fun and I brought home a whack of test strips. I will show you at the end. Right now I have them laid out so I can read them properly, but I'll gather them up and show you all of my test strips. I want to start out with probably my favorite one that I smelled in Sephora and can still smell it on the test strip days later. This is Rare by Rare Beauty. And it is just a basic vanilla. It really is. Now, I know it has a lot of special notes in it, like pistachio. There may be some caramel in it. I'm not sure. There are other notes. What it reminded me of while I was sniffing it in the store was Burberry Goddess and Lattafa Angham. Those are the ones that it really reminded me of. Just a very smooth, velvety, classic vanilla smell. And what I liked about it is that it didn't have the lavender in it. Angham and Burberry Goddess both have lavender in them and this does not, and I actually enjoy that about it. I think I might possibly like this more than those two. This does have some similar notes to Burberry Goddess and Lattafa Angham. It has ginger and it has cocoa, but it is such a creamy and classic vanilla smell. So smooth and so rich and sweet, not overly sweet. It's just a typical vanilla. And if you don't have Burberry Goddess or Lattafa Angham or something like Tumi Utopia, I think Rare would be excellent as just your classic basic vanilla that you could layer with anything. I really liked it. I do have Burberry Goddess, so I don't really need this because it's quite close to me. And the next one that I also sprayed on my skin was Ariana Grande Plush Vanilla. This is a lot harder to smell on the strip. It has been a few days, to be fair. With this one, I definitely get a sharper type of vanilla, more similar to Kayali Vanilla 28, in my opinion. Goes a little bit more in the brown sugar direction, a little bit more almost vanilla extract-like. Instead of being creamy and cakey and dessert-like, it definitely has more woodiness to it. Like I said, it reminds me more of Vanilla 28 by Kayali or even Phlur Vanilla Skin, maybe something like that. So it's just a little bit sharper, not quite as creamy as Rare by Rare Beauty. And with this one, when I first sprayed it out, I put my nose right up to my hand and the alcohol was just, it burned my nose. When I had sprayed Rare Beauty, I was too excited to wait for it to dry, so I smelled it immediately and I didn't get any of that. I just got the pure like perfume oil, just the perfume smell. With Plush Vanilla, it took I would say 10-15 seconds for the really harsh alcohol to dry off. And then when I smelled it, I could get, okay, it's vanilla. It's vanilla. But if you like more of that woody vanilla that has a little bit of an edge to it, I think Plush Vanilla could be really good. It is just a classic vanilla smell. And if you prefer something a little bit more creamy and smooth, a little more rounded, I think Rare by Rare Beauty is a little bit better. I did get my nose on the Parfum version of Burberry Goddess. And I've been hearing my friend Jamie from Not Another Perfume channel mention that it has a bit of a cough syrup vibe. The way that that fruitiness in the opening comes across is a little bit medicinal. And when I watched her video on that, I'll link that video in the description box for you. When I watched that video, I noticed in the comments that other people were also agreeing with her. And I think because that was in my mind, I was sort of watching for it when I sprayed it, and I did get it. I could tell what they meant by that medicinal, like I think it's maybe raspberry that's in it, and it just went a little sharper than, it's not a sweet type of raspberry, at least in the opening. And I got the Burberry Goddess DNA. I actually think I liked the Parfum version better than Burberry Goddess Intense. That one had so much lavender in it. It just came across so aromatic to me. It just was not my style. So other than the opening, I do like this better than the Intense version. And it ends up reminding me more of the original Burberry Goddess in the end. Interesting, but I mean, it's not something that I'm probably going to bother with. When I sprayed Prada Paradoxe Radical Essence, I was sitting there so confused. I'm like, what is this smell? And I started shuffling in my mind through what I have heard about it. And it took about a minute, and then it came to me that it was popcorn. But it was more of a burned popcorn. It wasn't a creamy, buttery popcorn. It wasn't a caramel popcorn. It smelled like burnt popcorn, and it actually reminded me a little bit of a freshly toasted tortilla, like a tortilla grilled over an open flame. And then it dried down to sort of the citrusy, powdery, sweet smell that you're used to with Paradoxe. Very interesting, but I don't think it's a one I will be purchasing. If I did purchase any of these, I would probably go for the travel size, because I didn't get the chance to spray them all on my skin. Was this one of the ones that I sprayed? I think Radical Essence was one of the ones that I sprayed on my skin. Yeah, it was. As I was browsing around, I looked down at the Nest section, and I saw a bottle that I'd never seen there before and that I had not heard of. And it's called Nest Crème de Clementine. Well, I just did a whole video on comparing orange-centric scents, clementine, mandarin, tangerine, anything like that. So I had fresh in my mind all of these orange scents, and when I sprayed on Crème de Clementine, which is one of the ones that I sprayed on my skin, I instantly said, creamsicle. This smells like an orange creamsicle. I've had people ask me before if I could recommend a creamsicle smelling scent. And when I sprayed this on my skin, my very first thought was, this is a scent that I would recommend for anyone looking for a creamsicle scent. The opening was exactly like an orange creamsicle. Very creamy, very orangey vanilla. As I sniffed my skin throughout the rest of the day, I noticed it got a little more zesty as time went on. And when it dried down, the vanilla seemed to be gone. It seemed to be mostly orange. I was getting a zesty orange. It was reminding me of, again, sometimes when I smell orange scents, I do get that orange, vitamin C liquid tonic that's a little bit medicinal. So that creamsicle smell did not last through the whole wearing. Now, obviously that was not doing a full wear test, so take that with a grain of salt, but I did only get the creamsicle smell for the first 20 minutes or so, and then it started getting more zesty. An hour or two in, it was mostly more of a sharp orange smell to me. Would I get a travel size of it? Maybe, because I love that creamsicle opening so much, and maybe if I did a full wear test, especially spraying it like on your clothes, maybe that sweetness and creaminess would stay instead of it going more thin and sharp. I would definitely consider a travel size of it, especially if I start hearing more reviews about it and people get that creamsicle lasting a little bit longer on them. I'll think about it. I sprayed Jo Malone Raspberry Ripple, and I was a little bit shocked. It wasn't what I was expecting at all. It was not a creamy ice cream type of smell to me. It was almost a tart raspberry. It was just a little bit sour, but it also had this muskiness that was also like a little bit hairspray-like. It just wasn't what I was expecting. Maybe if it had a different name and I went into it with different expectations, I would have enjoyed it more, but it just didn't match up with what I had in my head. I was expecting like raspberry ice cream, and that's not really what I got. I saw this review on TikTok, and the guy did seemed to think it smelled to him like raspberry ice cream, and he was calling it like a raspberry ice cream smell, and that's what he got from it. So that's what I went into it thinking it was going to be. But I'd also heard my friend Alicia from Alicia Budget Beauty, and she got more of the muskiness and the more tart sour raspberry smell, if I remember correctly. As of now, it's not what I'm interested in. That's always a relief, because now I don't need to spend my money on it. And just as a side note, I know these two are not new releases, but I always feel drawn to go over to the Replica section and spray them. And I'm always drawn to spray Afternoon Delight. I know this was not a big hit with people, but I'm always drawn to it. This is one that I feel I would go back and revisit and maybe get a travel size of. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's just a very rich, deep, nutty kind of sweet scent to me. I quite like it. I quite like it. And another Replica scent that I'm usually never drawn to try, and in fact I have a sample and it's been sitting in my perfume closet in there for probably over a year and I've never sprayed it, is When the Rain Stops. I've always just thought it was just going to be sort of a dismal, damp smell, just something, you know. I'm not a fan of petrichor, which is the smell you get in the earth, you know, after it rains. I'm not a fan of that. So I never even bothered spraying it out. But for some reason, when I was in Sephora and I just had all this time, just time to myself, I thought, I'm just going to spray it and just smell it. And I loved it. Now, I haven't cracked into my sample yet, but I'm glad I had the sample. Now I'm going to play around with it. And I mean, I could end up with a full bottle of it. I found it so pleasant and sweet and fresh. I was shocked. I never really gave it a chance. But When the Rain Stops by Replica, it's going to be on my radar now for sure. So while I was over in that section, I realized I had never smelled Never Ending Summer. And it is a 2025 release. It's not quite as new as these other ones, but I realized, okay, I need to smell this one just to get my nose on it. It was never one that interested me, judging by the reviews I'd heard on it. It didn't sound like something I would like, but I definitely wanted to at least try it. And what I got with this was the bitter orange smell. And actually I found it quite refreshing. It reminded me of a gin and tonic if it was done with orange instead of lime. Very fresh and very bright, very orangey. At this point, I had so many smells going on and mixing together that it was hard to tell. But of course, I had my strips and I smelled them the whole rest of the day. I don't know if you guys do that. You keep your test strips. And I always have my pen in Sephora and I always write down the names on them. Very messy writing, but you can see that it says Never Ending Summer. Probably not one that I would purchase, but I'm glad I got to smell this one. I got to smell Gucci Gorgeous Gardenia Intense. And this was just like all of the other intense versions of all the designer scents to me. It's really hard for me to distinguish between some of these sweet and floral designer scents. I feel like if someone had put this under my nose, oh, by the way, which I love that category. I love the intense version of Valentino Donna Born in Roma. I love the intense Valentino Voce Viva. I love like all of those sweet florals, the intense version, I tend to love them. And same with Gorgeous Gardenia Intense. I really loved it. Loved the smell of it. I thought it was perfect. It was sweet and floral, but not too different than all the other sweet floral intense versions of all the designer scents, in my opinion. It is one that I would be interested in the sense that I do love that scent category. It's not that I don't like it. In fact, I really loved it. I was like, oh man, this is good. But I sort of recognized it as something that I had smelled quite a few times in this realm. And so I kept walking around the store and smelling a few random things that I'd already smelled before, because I just enjoy going around and smelling and sort of reactivating my brain on each scent and reminding myself of what everything smells like and confirming whether I like something or don't like it. And as I was doing that, something came to mind. Queen's Caramel by Ellis Brooklyn. I didn't see it out on the shelves. So I went up to the sales associate and I asked her what the release date was going to be for Queen's Caramel. And I can't remember what she said, maybe the 12th, 14th, 16th or something of August. But she said she had it out back. And so she brought it out and she got a test strip and sprayed it for me. And I also asked her if I could spray it on my skin. So even though I had already had the backs of my hands and my forearms already covered, I went over here with Queen's Caramel. So it was so interesting when I first sprayed it out. I got a really fruity smell and I'm not sure why. I don't think there are any fruity notes in this. Let me just take a peek. Nope, there's no fruity notes. It has coconut. I'm feeling like what I was getting for a smell, it did sort of smell like a tropical fruity smell. And I'm looking at the notes, and I think if I took the combination of coconut and amber and put those together, because those are two of the notes, the coconut and the amber maybe was giving me that little bit of a tropical, almost smelled a little bit like peach or mango just in the opening, right at the beginning. And I was like, oh, I'm getting fruitiness. But then I started smelling the honey and the caramel, and those sweeter notes started coming out. At first I was like, I think I'm really going to enjoy this. It's quite nice. I'm impressed. But within 20 minutes to half an hour, the maple smell started coming out. I'm not the biggest fan of maple in fragrance. And I use maple syrup in my coffee sometimes. I use it in recipes. I make teriyaki sauce with it. I enjoy maple, but I do not want maple in my fragrance. To me, it smells very artificial, very sweet in a high-pitched and not pleasant way to my nose. So I did get the maple. Now, it wasn't sharp and it wasn't unpleasant. It just smelled more like maple cookies. If you're from Canada, you probably know the Dare maple cookies. They're shaped like a little maple leaf, and they have a very strong maple flavor. That's what I smelled. I would say from about half hour in, that came out, and the maple cookie smell lasted for the entire rest of the day. Even that evening, if I smelled my arm where I had sprayed it, it smelled like Dare maple cookies. If you love that, I would highly recommend Queen's Caramel. It's a very nice, good quality fragrance. I find it's well done, but it's not for me. I don't prefer the maple cookie smell. I would want to smell a maple cookie and eat it if I was not gluten-free. But that just personally, my taste, I don't want the maple. So those are all of the ones that I sprayed that day. In Sephora, I just had the time of my life wandering around, collecting perfume strips. And I had these in my little crossbody bag. There's a zipper across the top, but there's also a zipper on the back for a little back pocket. And I had these all separated and standing straight up in a row. I look like a porcupine walking around. So have you guys tried any of these new releases? I would love to know. I really appreciate you guys joining me today. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.